The story of Job. This is the story that transformed the life of a simple mortal into an extraordinary journey. Job was a man blessed by God, living in a fertile region, with productive land and prosperous herds. Divine grace smiled upon him, presenting him with 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys. His children, 7 boys and 3 girls, were like stars lighting up a private sky. Every day, Job celebrated divine generosity, dedicating moments of adoration and gratitude to God. This man's life was a symphony of success and prosperity, guided by the faith that was the foundation of his strength. Job recognized that all blessings came from the generous hands of God, and this intimate connection permeates every aspect of his existence. Then, as in the blink of an eye, everything changed. The sacred text says that on a day when the children of God came to present themselves before the Lord, Satan also came among them. At this point, the Bible highlights a brief dialogue between God and Satan. Then the Lord said to Satan, "Where do you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, and said, "To compass the earth, and to walk in it." And the Lord said unto Satan, "Have you observed my servant Job? For there is no one like him on earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil." Satan then begins to question God why Job was such a man that even God himself could testify in favor of him. Does Job fear God in vain? Have you not surrounded him and his house and all that he has with a hedge? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his livestock has increased in the land. Satan urges God to prove the faithfulness of the one he considers a faithful man. But he stretches out your hand and touches everything he has, and you will see whether he does not blaspheme you to your face. God, knowing the heart of the one he had spoken about, allowed Satan to touch everything Job had, but his life was spared. Behold, all that he has is in your hand, only against him do not stretch out your hand. Job 1 verse 12. As usual, one day, his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of his eldest brother, when, without ever imagining such a situation, Job received devastating news. His flocks were attacked and stolen, his children were tragically killed, and a celestial storm of fire destroyed what was left of their riches. We can imagine Satan's expectation waiting for Job to blaspheme God, but Job's attitude towards this situation is something unexpected. Then Job arose, and tore his cloak, and shaved his head, and cast himself on the ground, and worshipped. And he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this Job did not sin, nor did he attribute any fault to God. Job 1 verse 20-22. The story of Job, in addition to all the teachings it brings us, also shows a peculiar side of Satan's eternal enemy of man. He does not give up easily, and on yet another occasion he is again before God, urging him to continue to prove that who was once the richest on earth and has now become the most miserable. In yet another conversation, God continues to praise Job's faithfulness, but Satan says to God, "Skin for skin, and everything a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bones and flesh, and you will see if he does not blaspheme you to your face." And the Lord said unto Satan, "Behold, he is in thine hand, but he guards his life." Job 2 verse 4-6. As Job tried to comprehend the magnitude of these tragedies, a skin disease began to appear on his skin, adding more suffering to his already torn soul. The Bible says that Satan left the presence of the Lord and struck Job with malignant ulcers from the sole of his foot to the top of his head. A situation so deplorable that Job took pieces of tiles and, sitting on ashes, scraped his wounds. The loneliness of desolation became palpable. Job's wife, as expected in such a situation, succumbed to despair. In a moment of such pain and suffering, she suggested that Job curse God and accept death as release from that anguish. Those eyes that, once witnesses of abundance, now saw only ruins and desolation. There was Job in the midst of dust and ruin, reflecting the chaos that tumultuous in his soul. Even though he was insulted by his wife, he kept his faith alive in God. As any crazy woman says, "You say, shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" Even with such devastation, Job did not attribute the losses he had suffered to the enemy. He recognized that his dependence was on God, and everything that happened to him was his permission. And the scriptures say that, in all this, Job did not sin with his lips. In great distress, Job receives a visit from 3 loyal friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, who came to comfort him. However, his words were like a bitter balm, suggesting that her suffering was the result of her own sins. The internal conflict intensified, oscillating between frustration and anguish. If we stop to analyze the visit and conversations of Job's friends, we see a different situation in the way of looking, the great difference between the look of God and the look of men. In the story of Job, as God praises him as an upright and faithful man, we see his friends looking at Job as an unfaithful, impure, and sinner in such a way that what was happening was due to such a sin. This reminds us of what the sacred word says in 1 Samuel 16:7, because the Lord does not see as man sees, because man sees what is before the eyes, but the Lord looks at the heart. It was then, at the height of his affliction, that Job sought the heavens in search of answers, crying out to God with an insatiable thirst for understanding. In divine silence, he dared to question the purpose behind his suffering, challenging the apparent injustice that affected him. And as the Apostle Peter wrote in some of his letters, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you in time, casting all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." 1 Peter 5 verses 6 and 7. And God responded to Job, not with empty words, but with a display of his greatness. He transported him through the ages, questioning him about the creation of the universe, the foundations of the earth, and control over the elements. Job was questioned by God about his magnitude, about his knowledge. He asked Job, "Where were you when I made the earth?" God begins to show Job the greatness of his power. Faced with the magnitude of the divine, his limited understanding gave way to serene acceptance of life's circumstances. The transformation was not just physical, but spiritual. The deep understanding that God is sovereign over everything brought a peace that transcends human understanding. Tears of questioning gave way to tears of gratitude for divine revelation. Job, in a moment of gratitude, says, "I know that you can do all things, and that none of your purposes can be hindered." Job 42 verse 2. There comes a time when God now decides to punish Job's friends, yes, those who accused Job of sinning, and at that moment we see the sincere and upright heart of a man who, even in the midst of desolation, even in the midst of endless accusations, recognizes the value of true friendship. Job begins to intercede for his friends, and at that moment the story takes on a new script. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends, and the Lord added double to all that Job had before. Job 42 verse 10. God restored not only riches, but also health and family. At that moment, all those who had moved away from him due to his deplorable condition came again to eat with him in his house. And so the Lord blessed the last state of Job more than the first, for he had 14,000 sheep, and 6,000 camels, and 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 she-asses. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first Jemimah, and the name of the second Keziah, and the name of the third Keren-Happuch. And in all the land there were no women found as beautiful as Job's daughters, and their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. The experience shaped not only the way Job viewed personal tragedies, but also how he viewed existence as a whole. After so much experience, each day is lived with a renewed purpose, an understanding that we are just a speck of dust in the vastness of the universe, and that afflictions are ephemeral in the face of eternity. Life, an ephemeral breath, is a precious gift, and anxieties are an insignificant burden in the face of the greatness of God. And after this Job lived 140 years, and he saw his children and his children's children to the 4th generation. Then Job died, old and full of days. Job 42. And so, at the end of this extraordinary journey, we are invited to contemplate not only the transformative circumstances of Job's life, but also the essence of his heart. Job, the man who once enjoyed divine prosperity, faced adversity with a teachable and forgiving heart. Faced with the tragedies that plagued his life, Job did not close himself off from learning. Instead, he sought to understand the reasons behind his suffering, challenging himself to question God honestly and sincerely. His faith, initially anchored in good times, became a solid foundation, capable of withstanding the most intense storms. Job's heart reveals the beauty of humility before the divine. Even when his friends misunderstood him and suggested that his afflictions were the result of his own sins, Job did not succumb to resentment. Instead, he remained open to dialogue with God, seeking deeper understanding and restored connection. Job's ability to forgive is a powerful testimony to his unshakable faith. He bore no grudge against those who misjudged him, but rather interceded for them before God. His generosity extended beyond material boundaries, opening space for reconciliation and the reestablishment of relationships. Now, dear viewer, I invite you to reflect on this inspiring story of resilience and faith. What lessons did you learn from Job's journey? How can his teachable, forgiving heart be a source of inspiration for the adversities in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below. This is a space to learn together, to exchange insights and strengthen our individual journeys. If this story touched your heart and sparked valuable reflections, don't forget to like, share with those who might benefit, and, of course, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving enriching content like this. May Job's story be a light in your days, guiding you towards wisdom, understanding, and an open heart for the lessons that life has in store for us. Thank you for following this transformative narrative, and I look forward to your comments and reflections. Until next time, and may the journey of life continue to teach and shape us.